So yesterday I was discussing about the execution that happened over the weekend from ICE. And today on part two, I want to focus on other things that I found out from watching TV and from talking to people who I thought I really knew. And it's amazing the brainwashing that this cult has. It's amazing what this cult, and you thought you knew people. And I purposely took the bait that somebody in a group that I'm in was giving me. I was ignoring the bait for the last 48 hours, and I finally took the bait, but I purposely took the bait because I wanted to do a little bit of an experiment. And so I started posting videos. One video I posted was from Jon Stewart last night on the Daily Show, which ironically is called TDS. Another one I posted was the statement that was given by Alex Brady's parents. And you cannot believe the responses that I get from that. And I just want to read a little bit of that, if I may. This morning I woke up and somebody had sent me a picture of the murderer. His name is Evan Kilgore, who happens to be a far-right neo-Nazi, which tells you everything you need to know about this guy. Neo-Nazi, most likely a white supremacist as well, but his name was Evan Kilgore. And I hope a journalist goes and says the name to Christy Noem, because evidently she got triggered when the journalist said the name of Jonathan Ross, the guy who killed Renee Good. And he got triggered by saying, don't say his name, don't say his name. Why? Nobody seems to know. But his name is Evan Kilgore. His name is Evan Kilgore. And you should say his name, and you should say it loudly. And you should go to Christy Noem at her press conference, say the name. See if she gets triggered again. See if she gets triggered yet again. And Christy Noem was holding a press conference at FEMA headquarters, spewing out her usual bullshit of domestic terrorism. He had a gun, and it was self-defense. The typical MAGA bullshit that they've been hearing. Except for one little problem. It didn't happen. Here is a statement from Michael and Susan Peretti, the parents of Alex. The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked, while trying to protect the woman ICE was protecting. And in the video, and I've seen this video multiple times, and in the video that I've seen and the pictures, it's clearly showing his cell phone. And you can also hear him going to the lady in the video, the one that was knocked to the ground. You can hear him saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" Now keep in mind, Alex Peretti's instincts came in because he is a veteran nurse who helps veterans. And he's a well-respected nurse. So the first instinct you'd say is, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Clearly, he has the training in situations. And if you listen to the press conference that was given by Noem and Bavino, they're saying exactly the same or similar things. It's not true at all, but they are going around and saying it. And clearly you see he has a cell phone. But this is an insult to his parents. They're basically shaming a person and defaming him. And Christian Noem keeps saying he was brandishing a firearm. Well, as I said yesterday, holding a firearm and brandishing a firearm are not the same thing. What they were basically telling the world was that he had weapons of mass destruction and they had to stop him before he created a chaos. Are you fucking kidding me? He had weapons of mass destruction. If he had weapons of mass destruction, then why in the world would he scream out to the woman on the ground, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Why would he make himself known? If he was going to be a mass murderer or a domestic terrorist, wouldn't he just blow shit up without saying, "Are you okay? Okay?" Because why the hell would he care, right? And if he had weapons of mass destruction, this he was brandishing a firearm. Okay. So where are the other stuff that he had? Where are the other stuff? He had a permit to carry a lawfully owned gun. All they have to do is check the registration of the gun. That's all they have to do. And in the state of Minnesota, you're allowed to have open gun laws. And if it's good for Texas, why isn't it good for Minnesota? Because they have a Republican governor, so that's okay. And because they hate Tim Walz and they say racist and bigoted things against him, you can't. It doesn't work that way. If you have a permit to legally own a gun, then what the hell is the problem? Not only that, you have zero disregard for the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Because the Constitution says, and I know people don't want to hear this, but you have the right to bear arms. That is exactly what it says in the Constitution. That is the Constitution. But here's the thing. People are so quick to point out Kyle Rittenhouse, who killed 2 people, was tried and found, for whatever reason, the jury found him not guilty for whatever reason. But was his gun registered? How come nobody said anything about that? How come when Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 people and he was walking around with a gun, how come nobody cared then? How come nobody cared then? And how come when Charlie Kirk was killed and everybody said something about it, Republicans and MAGA were up and I'm saying, you can't do that. A man is dead. How can you? You remember when Jimmy Kimmel was thrown off the air because of Charlie Kirk? Because he said something that nobody liked, so the FCC so they threw him off the air. Remember that? Because he's something he didn't like? Okay. And then when he got back on the air, people were like, wait a minute, he didn't apologize. But now that Alex Petty was executed, the same people who were angry when we were happy that Charlie Kirk was dead, the same people are now saying, well, he shouldn't have gotten in the way. Well, fuck you. You can't have it both ways. Charlie Kirk died, yes, and a man was assassinated and brought down in front of a bunch of witnesses, and you could say, well, he shouldn't have carried a gun on him. So you're saying that because Charlie Kirk was your hero, and because he was a fellow MAGA and stood for something, we should respect his death and honor him, or you could lose your job. But because a doctor was trying to help a woman, or in magistrates, he was in the way, and so you're okay that he died, but you're not okay that he got in the way. So you're okay that he died, but when ICE throws a lady to the ground and assaults her, you're like, well, he shouldn't have gotten in the way. I guess if I get in the way of someone, should you shoot me? If I get into your face and I'm interfering with what you're trying to do, does that mean you're going to shoot me dead because I'm in the way of you doing what you're supposed to be doing? If I'm in your way, what if we say, excuse me, can you back up a little bit? Or, excuse me, you're in my space? Whatever happened to that? I'm in your way? Well, then fuck off. There's a way to tell me, oh, I'm in your way. Move aside, I'm going to shoot you. So human decency suddenly goes out the window here. And then when Christy Noem says questions, who brings a weapon to a protest? Does January 6th ring a bell to anybody here? Does January 6th ring a bell? Because if I remember correctly, all of those people brought guns, knives, ammo, weapons of mass destruction, and yes, even made a gallows to hang Mike Pence. But who brings a gun to a protest? Well, isn't that a double kind of a standard? The fact that people are trying to kill the vice president because it didn't go the way Donald Trump wanted, that's okay. The fact that they stormed the Capitol, smashing government property, that's okay. The fact that people had guns and knives, and aren't they domestic terrorists? Are they domestic terrorists? Or was that good because it's for Donald Trump and you're going to do anything to make him happy? You can't have it both ways. And first off, again, you're allowed to have a gun. Again, he had a legal gun. He had a permit for that gun. Okay? If you're law enforcement, as you claim you are, you should know the laws, right? You should be able to know the Constitution because, isn't that what they teach you on the job training? And speaking of training, they only had 47 days of training instead of the months you need. Why? Because Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. So you get 47 days of training to honor him. I mean, that's kind of fucked up logic right there. But if you're law enforcement, then you know the laws. You only shoot somebody when you're in danger. And if you're going to shoot somebody because they're in the way, then shoot them in the leg. Shoot them in the arm. You got to open, and then 10 times? You're bloody executing somebody 10 times? Simply because he was asking a woman if she was okay? This is not who we are as human beings. And you're telling people he's a domestic terrorist who had weapons of mass destruction. Really? And you know this how? Without any investigation, without anything? And people are stupid enough to believe this? All you have to do is check the gun. And the gun is registration. And you would see that he illegally obtained the gun. And are you and our ICE agents that stupid that they can't tell them a cell phone and a gun? Are they that stupid? And if you're trying to get rid of all the witnesses, then shouldn't you shoot everybody around you? The video was disturbing. I saw it last night on Lawrence O'Donnell. Shoot the guy 10 times to make sure he's dead? So you're murdering cold blood. This is why these Nazis wear masks, because they don't want to be held accountable. They don't want you to know who they are so that they can walk away scot-free. But here's the thing. How can you live with yourself? What do you tell your children? Are you telling your children it's okay to murder people when things don't go your way? Is it okay to tell people you're allowed to have a gun? Christy Noem has guns in her house. She shot a freaking puppy, a defensive poor old puppy, and a goat. Has no remorse for that. That's okay. All these people branded January 6th had weapons. Some weapons that they shouldn't have even legal. Some weapons that probably aren't even legal to have. And that's okay. So, going back to what I was saying on this video, Going back to what I'm saying. He was already disarmed. He didn't have any weapon on him. He had no reason to have a gun on him. Federal agents are there. You have the Minneapolis police force. You have the Minneapolis law enforcement who are there to do their job. If you think they're in the way, why don't you shoot them? And if you're okay with ICE agents just taking a poor defenseless woman and throwing her to the ground, which is assault, by the way, but you're telling somebody they're in the way because you're shooting. And the fact that Kristi Noem is defending this, just like she defended Renee Good, she defended that shooting too. And worse, she put his family into protective custody. So we don't know where he is. Is she going to do the same thing now with this guy, Evan Kilgore? Maybe Kristi Noem should be tried for murder. After all, at least 10 shots were fired in around 5 seconds, including several as Freddie lay motionless on the ground. And nobody stopped him. This Evan Kilgore who was shooting Alex, his fellow agent colleagues, just stood there. They didn't try to stop him. They just stood there, laughing, like this was some sort of a game to them, and they're getting some pleasure out of it. And people are like, he was in the way. So that's the reason to shoot somebody? So if you get in my way, should I shoot you? Should I throw you out the window? Should I throw you down the steps because you're in my way? You could try to justify this in every which way you can. There's absolutely no way you can justify this. There is absolutely no way you could be for this assassination. Because if you are, then you can get the fuck out of my life and you can go join the Nazi party. Because I don't want anything to do with you if you're okay with this. And where was the Minnesota Police Department? Where were they? Why are they not? I'm actually going to play you this because it's important, and I want people to understand this. So I'm going to play this in its entirety. This is basically what happened.
Our law enforcement are doing everything that they can to protect the public. We're praying for this deceased loved one's family.
Direct quote from the deceased's family. The sickening lies told about her son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked while trying to protect the woman ICE just pushed down. All verifiable from multiple witness videos. But Kristi Noem and Gregory Bavino's pre-rehearsed script tries to tell a different story.
An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun.
He didn't approach them with a handgun, he approached them with a phone. With zero factual basis, they unequivocally claim Freddie wanted to do
maximum damage in massacre law enforcement.
To inflict harm on these officers coming brandishing like that.
At no point was Alex Freddie brandishing a firearm. It's patently untrue. Freddie did have a permit to carry for his lawfully owned gun, which an officer clearly takes possession of before another officer opens fire on him.
The agents attempted to disarm this individual.
They didn't attempt. They successfully Yet with Preddy already disarmed, they claim the agents fired
defensive shots.
Defensive shots into a man who had been pepper sprayed repeatedly, tackled and restrained by more than 5 federal agents, bludgeoned with a canister, and then disarmed. And only after that were 10 fucking shots fired at an already incapacitated man. But apparently the agent was
Fearing for his life.
Yeah, they were so clearly traumatized that after the shooting, one agent taunted protesters by saying boo-hoo.
The law does not enforce itself.
But it does investigate itself, apparently. DHS blocked Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension from even investigating the scene despite having a signed warrant from a judge. Instead of BCA, DHS is now leading the investigation into a murder at the hands of its own officers, intentionally circumventing a state agency that's specifically brought in to avoid departments from investigating themselves. But don't worry, Noem insists that
We're going to continue to tell the truth about Minnesota, Minneapolis, what happened here.
evidently not, because Preddy's parents felt the need to make a plea directly to the American people. Please get the truth about our son. He was a good man. Not a domestic terrorist or a would-be assassin, in the words of Stephen Miller, but a good man who cared about people deeply. In fact, as an ICU nurse at a VA hospital, Alex Preddy might have said it best himself unintentionally when he was honoring a veteran who had passed away.
Today we remember that freedom is not free. We have to work at it, nurture it, protect it, and even sacrifice for it.
And there you have it. And you watch that video, and you want to cry. But he's right, though. An agency cannot investigate themselves for obvious reasons, and it most likely is probably against the law, too. And the fact that DHS is blocking everybody from investigating it tells you everything you need to know, which is they don't want you to know what really happened. They want you to believe the narrative they've been telling. And Stephen Miller, of course, goes deeper. But if you hear the video, you notice that Bavino and Noem were pretty much saying the exact same thing as if he was told what to say by Noem. Imagine that. They're both saying the same exact thing, even though it's not true. And immediately after, all of these right-wingers, Nick Soder, Benny Johnson, all of these people started picking up on it. And not only were they picking up on it, they even went further with it. But here's the thing. You don't know anything about this guy. Just like we didn't know anything about Renee Good. We never heard of her until she was murdered. And this Alex Preddy, we didn't even know who he was until he was murdered. And suddenly, we're making up stories about him, and people believe it. But where are the fucking facts? How do you have how do you know what the facts are before the fucking investigation ever happened? How can you investigate yourself when you are the ones that committed the crime? And the agent is screaming to everybody else, boo-hoo? Really? What if it was your daughter that was killed? What if it was your wife or husband that was killed? What if it was your friend that was killed? Would you say, boo-hoo, oh well, they probably deserved it? Like, how do you justify that? And this is what Jon Stewart said last night on The Daily Show. Let me play you this clip too.
Lying. We saw it. And that's how brazen they lie when they know we've seen the truth. That's how they lie when they know we know. Imagine how they lie when there's no evidence to contradict them.
And he's right. He's right. If there's no evidence, if the evidence exists and you're ignoring the evidence to come up with your own version of events. Evidence is, are you mean to say that everyone who shot the video made it up? Are you saying that your evidence is better because you were there? We didn't misinterpret it. We didn't imagine it. We watched them lie in real time. This was actually happening. And when the state is more afraid of witnesses and violence, they'll come up with some bullshit story in the hopes that you believe it, which always goes back to tell a lie long enough, and it becomes the truth. But it's not the truth. It's the truth that you believe, but that doesn't mean it's the real truth. So let's go back to what he's saying.
Lying. We saw it. And that's how brazen they lie when they know we've seen the truth. That's how they lie when they know we know. Imagine how they lie when there's no evidence to contradict them. And maybe that more than anything explains why Alex Preddy really was a threat. Because he was brandishing a weapon. A handheld, aluminum, 1080p, 60 FPS weapon of mass illumination. Because there is nothing more dangerous to a regime predicated on lies than witnesses who capture the truth.
And he's right. Jon Stewart is absolutely right. People are afraid of the truth. And John F. Kennedy said it. The only thing to fear is fear itself, because people fear what they don't understand. But here's the thing. As Jon Stewart said, he did have a gun. That's right. And they did remove it from his vest. After they shot him to death, they did take away the gun. And if they did take away the gun, all they had to do was do what every police officer does, which is check the person's background. When you get a ticket, they ask for your ID because they want to make sure they want to make sure you're clean, have no previous criminal record or anything like that, or that you're not a danger to anybody. All they had to do was take the gun, get the registration number, and they would have found out that yes, it indeed is legal, and yes, it is indeed registered to Alex Preddy. But they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. But they call themselves law enforcement officers. How are you a law enforcement officer when you're not even enforcing the law? How are you a law enforcement officer when you violate the Constitution every day? Because you can't have it both ways, and that's what they're doing. And Hakeem Jeffries said today, he gave an ultimatum to Donald Trump. He said, fire Kristi Noem, or we will have impeachment proceedings on her. And we all know that Donald Trump isn't going to fire Noem. He may be disappointed in her, but he's not going to fire her. If he didn't fire Pete Hesketh for the signal scandal, why in the world would he fire Noem? She's already testified to Congress once and lied through her teeth. And when she couldn't answer the question, she did what MAGA always does, blame Joe Biden. Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden hasn't been president over a year. How can you blame him for what's going on now? She's agreed to testify again in March. But speaking of Congress, where the hell are the Republicans? How come they haven't said anything about this? Where are they? What did they say? As usual, Trump administration officials are trying to portray him as a violent domestic terrorist, even an assassin. Forget the fact that there's video evidence and all the witness first-person accounts that were there, but they're saying he's a violent domestic terrorist and an assassin. And they're gaslighting because the only assassin that's here is Evan Kilgore, the man who shot in cold blood, in broad daylight, in front of everybody. He's the only assassin here. And shooting him 10 times because once or twice isn't enough. The Department of Homeland Security claimed after Peretti's death he had violently resisted officers and that the incident looked like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Yeah, the guy had a phone and asked the lady on the ground, "Are you okay? Are you okay? I don't understand where the massacre is." It looked like an incident. So did they even bother looking at the video, or are they just making up their version of events out of thin air and taking the word of the ICE agents that were on the ground? Similar claims have been made by top Trump officials, with Kristi Noem claiming Peretti attacked, in quotes, law enforcement while brandishing a gun, and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller describing Peretti as an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, which both said he appeared to be a domestic terrorist. Senator Chris Murphy said this. Now, he's a Democrat from Connecticut. ICE must leave Minneapolis. Congress should not fund this version of ICE that is seeking confirmation, chaos, and dystopia. Stephen Miller says to Chris Murphy, an assassin tried to murder federal agents, and this is your response. Readers add context on Twitter. No evidence has been released supporting allegations of an assassination attempt. Analysis of the videos of the shooting do not show the victim attempting to assassinate anyone. But this administration can go fuck themselves because they don't fucking give a shit about any type of evidence whatsoever. In their world, which is in the alternate mirror universe that they apparently were living in, it was an assassination attempt, and anything else than that is a flat-out lie. That's what Stephen Miller wants you to believe. That's what Kristi Noem wants you to believe. That's what Greg Bavino wants you to believe. That's what every single MAGA cult member wants you to believe. Doesn't matter that there's video evidence that contradicts everything they say, but they want you to believe that it was an assassination attempt, and he was ready to blow shit up had he had the chance. That's what they want you to believe. And if you don't believe it, then you're insane, you're retarded, and that you're a Democrat, and of course you wouldn't believe it. Okay, why would I believe something that never happened? Why would I believe a story that doesn't exist? Why would I believe them over multiple videos that do exist? And then you're telling me he was in the way. He was in the way? And that's a reason to shoot somebody? Okay. So does that mean Charlie Kirk was killed because he was in the way? So the assassin killed him because he was in the way? Kyle Rittenhouse murdered 2 people because they were in the way? Should you kill your parents because they're in the way of you succeeding in life? Or because they don't like the person you're hanging out with, so they're in the way? So you should kill your parents by that logic? By that logic? To continue, video footage shows Peretti, a licensed gun owner, and you can verify this online, who was carrying at the time, never took out his gun and law enforcement took the firearm before he was first shot. And that's all they had to do. All they had to do was take his gun, check to see if it was registered, and check to see if it was obtained legally. That's all they had to do. And if they felt he was a threat, they could have arrested him. Or they could have moved him away from the scene. So yes, I'm going to call them what they are. Fucking Nazi Gestapo police. That's all I have to say to that. You could fuck me. You could say, you're a fucking moron. You're a loser. Why are you calling the Nazis? You should be ashamed of yourself. Good. You don't like what I'm calling them. And I don't like that you're justifying the fact that they deserved to die. But I'm willing to... But apparently, you calling ICE agents Nazis is offensive. Well, who gives a shit what the fuck do you think? You're okay with the fact that a guy was executed because he was in the way. But the fact that they threw a woman to the ground and assaulted her, that's okay? That's okay? Okay, I'll throw you to the ground and I'll assault you. How would you like it? How would you like it? What is it? Up is down, down is up, right is left is right, black is white, white is black? Is that what we're doing now? Are we going into... Are we going backwards now in time? Nobody wanted this. Video evidence and sworn witnesses' testimony indicate Peretti approached law enforcement during their altercation with other civilians filming the incident on his phone, but never taking out his gun or acting violently towards officers. ICE agents pepper sprayed Peretti and the other civilians before tackling Peretti to the ground, with multiple agents then shooting him. Donald Trump suggested Peretti's death was a result of Democrat-run sanctuaries in states that are refusing to cooperate with ICE. Which, by the way, makes absolutely no sense. But, okay, because if this happened in a Republican city or Republican state, you would imagine the response to this would be totally different. On Saturday, he decried a Democrat's opposition to his immigration policies and claimed tragically 2 American citizens have lost their lives as a result of this Democrat-ensued chaos. Gaslighting once again, because this is all because of Trump. None of this would have happened if Trump didn't have ICE agents in Minnesota. None of this would have happened if ICE actually was following the law. So this is Trump's fault through and through. So if anything, Trump is the murderer here. Trump is the instigator, because these 2 people in Minnesota would still be alive today if ICE never entered the city. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal on Sunday, Trump did not say whether he believed the agents who shot Peretti acted appropriately, saying only, we're reviewing everything and we'll come out with a determination. Too late. Your Homeland Security Director already determined what happened. She didn't look at anything. She didn't review any of the evidence. She already determined what happened. And apparently, so did Greg Bavino, so did Stephen Miller. So, and because they're your cabinet members, you should know what's going on, right? You should watch TV, right? Kristi Noem already determined that she has no interest in watching the videos. She has no desire to hear the evidence. She has no desire to hear the truth. And don't worry about it. When she goes to Congress to testify, those videos will be played for her. And they're going to ask her, specific question is, doesn't this contradict what you've said? And you know they're going to ask that question. And what is she going to say? What is she going to say? Videos were altered? We know what we saw? Because they're going to play those videos to her in the Congress when she's testifying. And what is she going to say then? What bullshit answers is she going to play? Is she going to blame Joe Biden again? Is she going to blame Obama? I'd like to see her get out of it. Because she can't. because the first time she testified, it backfired on her. Now the second time, they want answers. The president also criticized Preddy for carrying a gun, saying, I don't like any shooting. I don't like it. But I don't like it when somebody goes into a protest and he's got a very powerful, fully loaded gun with 2 magazines loaded up with bullets. Also, that doesn't play good either. Really? It didn't seem to bother you on January 6th? When all your cronies stormed the Capitol, brandishing weapons, screaming out, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. It didn't seem to bother you then. If it didn't seem to bother you then why does it bother you now? You don't like shooting? You don't like when people are carrying a gun? First of all, you don't know if the gun was loaded. That's number one. Do we know the gun was loaded? We don't know the gun was loaded. Second of all, again, he had a legal gun. The Second Amendment, right to bear arms. I cannot stress this enough. Suddenly, it doesn't work. It doesn't exist for MAGA. But you don't know if the gun was. Do you know if the gun was loaded? And even if it was loaded, he had the safety on. But you don't like shooting? You don't like when somebody goes to protest and got a... Really? So what happened with January 6th? Did January 6th not happen? Did people not go in there with pickforks, guns, firecrackers, knives, other types of weapons that are probably not even legally obtained? Making a gallows to hang Mike Pence? Violence? That wasn't a protest. That was rioting for your benefit. And when Nancy Pelosi said, call the National Guard, and she begged you to do so, you just sat there watching it unfold on TV, proud, hoping that this would become a success. So, no, Donald Trump, shut the fuck up, because you're a gaslighting and you're a hypocrite, because you're saying you don't like it. But all your cronies on J6, Proud Boys, and you literally said to them during one of the debates, you gave them a coded message. Hang on. You literally pardoned every single one of January 6th. You pardoned the Proud Boys, remember? You pardoned all the J6s, and I'm pretty sure you pardoned them with the condition they join your Gestapo police. I'm willing to bet on that. I'm willing to bet my life savings on that. So no, don't say you don't like people with guns. You don't like people who go to protest a loaded gun, because that's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. Because I can remind you that Lauren Boebert took a family Christmas photo. They were all brandishing guns, even her children. That didn't seem to bother you. Christine Noem shot her puppy, her defenseless puppy. That didn't seem to bother you. She shot her goat. That didn't seem to bother you. Kyle Rittenhouse. That didn't seem to bother you. Charlie Kirk, you mourned his death. You were so devastated, you even made a statement by it. But people who spoke out against it, you tried to get them canceled. MAGA was saying somebody speaks bad about Charlie Kirk should lose their job. So you mean to say you don't like guns? And you don't think people should be at a protest with a loaded gun? That's a joke. That is a really big joke coming from you. Not surprised, but. And then there's the dumb blonde bimbo Caroline Levitt. When she was asked money about other administration officials using the term domestic terrorists to describe Preddy, she said she had not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way and claimed Trump wants to let the facts and the investigation lead itself. Incorrect. Dum-dum. Trump doesn't care. Trump does not care. Because had he cared, he would have reprimanded Noem. He would have reprimanded Kristi Noem and said, don't speak until you know anything. If he really cared, he would have gone to Bavino and said, what are you doing? If he really cared, he would have told Kristi Noem, tell them not to make a statement until we know everything. So, no. She's wrong. She's gaslighting just as well. And you should not believe a word she is saying, because it is basically a lie. Noem claimed on Saturday that Peretti had a weapon on him and multiple dozens of rounds of ammunition, which to inflict harm on these officers, coming brandishing like that. Brandishing, the definition of brandishing means a gun means to display it in an intimidating manner, which there is no evidence Peretti actually did that. FBI Director Kash Patel similarly claimed something that Peretti was trying to attack law enforcement and falsely claimed the victim did not have a right to carry a gun at a protest, which multiple gun rights groups have criticized as false. You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have a right to break the law, Patel told Fox Business, although there is no evidence Peretti was acting unlawfully. Now, let's go back to what Kash Patel says. You don't have a right to break the law. Okay, fine. You don't have a right to break the law? Okay. So ICE agents are exempt from that? The keyword of law enforcement means to enforce the law and follow it to a T. So if you don't have a right to break the law, then how do you explain ICE? They're executing people. They're murdering people. They're walking into people's homes without a search warrant, which is in violation of the Fourth Amendment. They're telling people you're not allowed to have a gun, which is in violation of the Second Amendment. They're trying to silence people, which is against the First Amendment. And you're telling me you're not allowed to break the law? And you're an FBI agent, and you're running the FBI? All these organizations that were credible and were very well respected, that's gone. Nobody's going to trust the government anymore. No one is going to trust any of these agencies anymore. No one is going to trust the FBI anymore. They have lost all credibility because they're releasing statements that are bullshit, that are false, that are fake, that anybody who understands the Constitution and who understands the laws of this country know that what Kristi Noem, Kash Patel, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, what they're all saying is complete and utter bullshit. They have absolute zero respect for the law. They despise the law, and they think because they're in powers of position, the law doesn't apply to them. Well, then don't call yourself a law enforcement agent. Call yourself a fucking Nazi. Because the Nazis didn't care about German law. The only person they were loyal to was Adolf Hitler. That's all they cared about. And if you were disloyal to Hitler, you were either dismissed as an officer, or you were shot dead. Or poisoned. Either one. And yes, that's true. Hitler didn't care about the law. He said, make Germany great again. And Donald Trump saying, make America great again. But how the fuck are you making America great again when you're snatching people off the streets? Your own people, American citizens, people who are naked in the cold, and you're throwing them into the street in the middle of the night, snatching children. How was that law enforcement exactly? So you're saying no one's allowed to break the law? No one has the right to break the law? You're right. But then you're a hypocrite because you're supposed to be leading by example. And when you're telling people, don't break the law, okay, so if it's forbidden to break the law, then why are you violating the Second Amendment? Violating the First Amendment? Violating the Fourth Amendment? Why are you violating the 14th Amendment? Do I have to go on? Is this, it benefits us, so we're good to violate the law? But if you do it, you can't? If you were a Republican, it's okay, but if you're a Democrat, it's not? If this was a Republican city, we'd be nicer to you, but because you're sanctuary cities, this is literally insane, bonkers, batshit, crazy stuff that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. And according to Bovino, who was removed from this entire thing, he claimed it looked like Peretti wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Though, in an interview with CNN on Sunday, an immigration official could not support his claims Peretti assaulted any federal officer. But in the few days that has happened, Noem has not repeated the false claims, only that he was laying hands on law enforcement rather than attacking them. What they don't address is that they knocked the defenseless woman to the ground and assaulted her. And that they have no problem with. They have a problem with him laying his hands on law enforcement, which may or may not be true. So if no one has a right to break the law, you just assaulted a defenseless woman by throwing her to the ground. By throwing her to the ground and assaulting her. I don't know about you, but if I walked into Times Square, knocked somebody to the ground, I can guarantee you I'd be arrested and charged. I don't know about you, but if I threw someone down to the ground, man or woman, if I threw someone down to the ground in the middle of Times Square, I can bet you a bottom dollar that I would be arrested and charged with a crime. So how come they don't bring that up? How come they're only looking at one side of this? What are they trying to hide? Who are they protecting? Why are they protecting him? Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche also shied away Monday from describing Peretti's actions towards law enforcement as an act of them after Noem and Miller used that language over the weekend. Levitt asked Monday about why officials jumped to conclusions, but Peretti responded, "This has obviously been a very fluid and fast-moving situation." The press secretary said she only speaks for Trump, who wants to let the investigation continue. Now, the video of Peretti's killing confirmed by the New York Times appears to show Peretti approaching federal border agents as they speak to civilians while a person is being detained. He is filming the scene. After border agents shove one of the civilians to the ground, Peretti appears to put himself between the civilians and law enforcement, still holding his phone to record. At no point does Peretti appear to be engaging in any violence towards law enforcement. The agents pepper spray the civilians, tackle Peretti to the ground, at which point, the Times notes, one agent struck Peretti with a pepper spray canister, while another appeared to pull Peretti's gun from him and remove it from the scene. While Peretti was on the ground being restrained, ICE agents then fired shots at Peretti, appearing to fire at least 10 shots within the span of 5 seconds. Multiple witnesses filed sworn declarations about Peretti's death in a court case over the deployment of ICE agents to Minnesota. An unnamed children's entertainer who witnessed Peretti's death said they went to the scene because whistles alerted them to the fact that ICE agents were in the area. Peretti appeared to be sort of acting to help traffic move more smoothly as the witnesses arrived on the scene while filming the scene and after an agent asked the witnesses and other observers to move back. Peretti stayed in the street and continued filming, later approaching agents as they threatened other observers at the scene. "I didn't see Peretti reach for and hold a gun," the witness noted. After ICE agents shoved another observer to the ground and started pepper spraying Peretti and the other observers, Peretti put his hands above his head and the agent sprayed him again and pushed him. The witness said Peretti was trying to help up the women the ICE agent had shoved to the ground when ICE agents grabbed him and pulled him onto the ground, with the witnesses noting it didn't look like he was trying to resist, just trying to help the woman up. The agents then started shooting Peretti, according to the witnesses who wrote, "I don't know why they shot him. He was only helping." Another witness, a 29-year-old pediatrician, arrived on the scene after witnessing the shooting from their apartment, noting they did not see Peretti attack the agents or brandish a weapon of any kind. The witness approached Peretti to administer medical help, testifying none of the agents were trying to administer CPR, and Peretti was lying on his side, which is not proper procedure after someone had been shot. Rather than checking for a pulse or administering CPR, like agents are trained to do. The witnesses wrote the federal agents appeared to be counting his bullet wounds. Peretti's family and families vehemently condemned the Trump administration's comments about the killing in efforts to describe him as violent, instead characterizing him as a kind nurse who cared deeply about helping others. Peretti's parents slammed the administration's sickening lies about their son and said they were heartbroken but also very angry, describing Peretti in a statement as a kind-hearted soul who cared deeply for his family and friends and wanted to make a difference in this world before his death. Please get the truth out about our son. He was a good man, they wrote. The Trump administration's effort to cast blame on Peretti after his death is in line with how the federal government responded to the death of Renee Good, another U.S. citizen who was shot and killed by an ICE agent in Minnesota earlier this month. Trump and his top officials similarly criticized Good in the wake of her killing, falsely claiming she was trying to hit the ICE agent with her car, despite video evidence showing otherwise. Noem and Vice President Vance described Good as a domestic terrorist whose actions were an attack on law and order, with Vance alleging the victim was a left-wing activist who was part of a purported network that was trying to incite violence against immigration agents. There is no evidence to support those claims, naturally. Trump also criticized Good, telling the Times she behaved horribly and then she ran him over. With high-certain video evidence showing that did not happen, the president reportedly sidestepped the question of whether Good ran over the ICE agent and just responded, the way I look at it, it's a terrible scene. Peretti's shooting escalated existing tensions in Minnesota and across the country over ICE agents and the Trump administration's hardlines immigration tactics. Tensions first escalated in Minnesota after Good's death, sparking protests throughout the Minneapolis area and leading Trump to deploy thousands more federal agents to the city. Right. So in order to make the problem go away, you make the situation worse by sending more agents, oblivious to the fact that this all happened because you sent agents there originally. Ironic, isn't it? Peretti's death has sparked national outrage among Trump administration critics and even some Republicans. Several GOP senators have called for an investigation into the incident, and Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt said Sunday he thought the president was getting bad advice. Trump said Monday he was sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota in the wake of Peretti's death and had spoken with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, claiming the two seemed to be on the same wavelength about de-escalating tensions. Yeah, which is a little bit too late here. It's a little bit too late here. And really, you should not have escalated this. You should not have escalated this further. You should have not sent any ICE agents here. You should have taken the hint the first time. When it got out of hand after Renee Good, you should have told the ICE agent to disperse and leave. And that's it. But Trump loves chaos. Don't you get it? This is all a distraction. This is all a distraction. This is Trump trying to invoke martial law, trying to invoke a police state, trying to distract from the Epstein files, which, by the way, when Patel says no one has a right to break the law, well, didn't Pam Bondi break the law 37 days ago when she was supposed to release the Epstein files? It was signed into law, right? Donald Trump signed into law. So, should we arrest Bondi for breaking the law, for not releasing the Epstein files? Should we arrest Bondi because they're trying to destroy the evidence of what happened with Peretti? So, should we arrest Patel for breaking the law? Should we arrest Noem? I can go on here. Should we arrest Donald Trump for letting this happen? So, I can go on here, but you get the gist here. This isn't about immigration at all at this point. This is simply a distraction. This is Trump trying to bring martial law into states, into cities. This is about distracting from the Epstein files. This is about distracting people so that there's no election. This is Trump simply trying to stay in power so that he's not impeached, he is not arrested, he doesn't go to jail. This is Donald Trump, who the only reason why he became president was to stay out of prison. We all know that. And he's going to do every damn thing he possibly can to make sure that happens. Even if that means he'll be dead. And if people are forbidden to break the law according to Patel, then why don't you look at Donald Trump, who broke every single law, defying a court, defying the judges? That's against the law. That's against the law. You fired agents because they were investigating Trump on January 6th. Isn't that disregarding the law? Because they're doing their job? So, understand what's going on here. This is all a distraction. This is all a distraction. Because rather than try to resolve the situation, you keep sending in ICE agents to other parts of Minnesota. And now you're going into other states like Maine. And how come you're not sending to Republican states? Are you saying there are no immigrants in Republican states like Texas or Florida? Because I hate to break it to you, Florida has a lot of immigrants because they all come in through Cuba. And by your logic, Puerto Rico, since you have some issue with Bad Bunny coming here. So why are you not following up on Republican states? Because in Florida, you have a lot of immigrants. In Texas, you have a lot of immigrants because they're right by the Mexican border. In Florida, you have the Cuban border. So why is that okay? Because they're Republicans? Because what you're basically saying is, we don't like Democrats because they didn't vote for me, so I'm going to get my revenge by causing chaos for them. That's basically what you're saying. But it's okay to have illegal immigrants in Texas, Florida, Wisconsin, Missouri, because they all voted for me. So great. But you really and when Trump is saying we have to go there because the violence there is problematic, there's no violence there. You bring the violence, and it's a smart move because then you can say to everybody, you see, I was right. There's chaos there. They're rioting. They're domestic terrorism. They're murdering people. This way he can take credit for sending ICE agents there to stop the crime that he created, but then gaslight and say, see what's going on there? They're protesting. They're rioting. It's clever, but it's a lie. And protesting and rioting are not the same thing. Protesting and rioting are not the same thing. And if you want to protest, that's fine. And you have a right to protest any way you want. You want to bring a gun to a protest? Fine. You're allowed to bring a gun to a protest. Keep it in your pocket. But under no circumstances do you have a right to say they're breaking the law and they shouldn't be bringing a gun to a protest when all of you shitheads didn't seem to mind it on January 6th, when they all brought all kinds of weapons there and they were destroying government property. And they were yelling, hang Mike Pence. You didn't seem to mind then. You didn't seem to mind that all these officers who were at the testimony a few weeks ago, you said to their face and blamed the officers because they weren't doing their jobs, which made no sense. So cut the bullshit. Cut the fucking lies. You have no credibility to say that because all of you in the administration don't follow the law. And all of you enabled Donald Trump because instead of telling him that he can't do ABC, and because you're saying, no, sir, you can't do this, not only are you enabling him, but you're helping him. And that's okay, because when the Democrats come back and get control of the House, because this is not, if Trump thinks he's going to win the midterm elections, this is why he lost in November of 25, because people were fed up. with all of these people running for office who were Trump loyalists, and they were taking their cues from Donald Trump. And people had enough of it. And that's why Mickey Sherrill won New Jersey. This is why Virginia has their first female governor. Because people don't want Republicans anymore. And people are going to go to the polls, and people are going to remember this. And when it comes to the midterms in November, people are going to look at the Republicans and say, bye-bye. You took away my health care. You allowed murderous thugs into my state. You kept funding them. And you allowed this to happen. And they will remember this. And when Trump loses the midterms, mark my words, the Democrats will regain control of the House and the Senate. And believe me, they have balls. They have a spine. And they aren't pussies. They will hold every single one accountable. They will hold Jonathan Ross accountable. They will hold Evan Kilgore accountable. They will hold Greg Bovine accountable. Kristi Noem will be accountable. Kash Patel, Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, even Donald Trump. Every single one of these will be held accountable. Because Trump wants a civil war. That's what he's trying to do. Have a civil war pitting MAGA against Democrats. Sanctuary cities against Republican cities. That's exactly what Donald Trump wants. And we cannot let this happen. And when he is held accountable, we will all have the last laugh. Because we cannot let this go on. Because if we let this continue, this is only going to get worse. And who knows what these ICE agents are capable of? Who knows what these Nazi Gestapo assholes are capable of? Christina wants to build camps and black sites. Think about that. She wants to build camps, or as she's calling them, detention centers. Yeah, you know what? So did Hitler. Hitler wanted to build detention centers too, and guess what? He did. Not only did he do that, he starved these people. He took away their rights, their dignity, their humanity. And this is all out of Project 25 playbook. This is all out of the Project 2025's playbook. You want to build black op sites for detention centers so that we can do whatever we want without the legal ramifications in people's backyard? And you don't think that this is... and then you tell me that this is not the Holocaust again, and you tell me to go fuck off, and then I'm a Trump deranged syndrome, and I'm a retard because I'm telling you the truth and you don't want to hear it? Well, then go fuck yourself, because you know what? Until it happens to you, you won't believe me. And when it happens to you, you're going to look at me and say, and ask me for help. And I'm going to look at you and say, I tried to help you, and you told me to go fuck off. So I'm fucking off, and you're on your own. Because you know what? Karma's a bitch. And it comes back to haunt you.